Hello and welcome everyone to yet another Onslaught University stream. Today we will be talking about monster triggers, patrol triggers, and respawn triggers. My name is Janodi and I am joined today with Pestilence here. Pestilence, hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
So, in case you are wondering what is going on, I will just get you up to speed real quick. We currently, the Onslaught series, has a captain's event going on. What is a captain's event, you ask? Well, a captain's event is a 2-week long journey in which you will be paired with a more experienced player that will guide you through all those hard and complicated difficulties, which are called usually Deathwish Onslaught and alike. So, in order to get these in order to practice these, you will be practicing for 2 weeks with your coach, and in the end, you will have a stream that will be simulating a tournament. All right, so our stream today will be about monster patrol and respawn triggers. You can ask questions anytime in the Twitch chat or in the voice chat in the Onslaught series Discord whenever you are asked for it. Other than that, I would just get started and jump right into the first topic.
Trigger management, a lesson in caution and catastrophe. Welcome class. Today we'll explore one of the most crucial lessons for any adventurer in the treacherous world of Vermintide 2, Trigger management. Ah yes, triggers. Invisible to the naked eye, but capable of summoning some larger than life problems. What is a trigger, you ask? Brave adventurer. It's quite simple. A trigger is an unseen threshold that, when crossed, will summon a colossal creature or an armored army. But fear not, young adventurer. By mastering the art of trigger management, you'll avoid waking up these titanic terrors prematurely. Oh no! Look at Timmy! He's an eager beaver trying to get some easy supplies.
Where are you going, Ratman?
But by golly, he just unleashed a chaos spawn. Poor Timmy, he didn't wait for his team. And now, well, it looks like he's got some big problems on his hands. You see, class, rushing ahead may seem brave, but in reality, it's nothing short of a catastrophe waiting to happen. Let this be a lesson to you all. Impatience in Vermintide 2 can cause monstrous problems. Now, let's see how it's supposed to be done. Timmy, remember what we talked about. Is your team ready?
Tall psych. Attack formation!
That's the tops. With good teamwork and awareness, the team is ready to face the danger on their own terms. Prepared and united, our heroes handle the Rat Ogre like true professionals. Vermintide 2 is a dangerous place, and there are many ways to meet an abrupt end. With our knowledge of trigger management, though, we'll make sure premature trigger activation isn't one of them. Well, we can work on helping those guys later. And there you have it, class. Remember, patience is a virtue, even in a world teeming with murderous monsters and chaos. Manage your triggers wisely, and you'll live to fight another day. Until next time, adventurers.
There you have it. Exactly. That's how easy it can go. Yeah, Pestilence, maybe you want to give a short introduction. What is going on in that video?
Yeah, so it's just a small introduction. We're going to be talking about triggers and trigger management. And so I thought that'd be a fun way to kind of, do an introduction to the topic. Like the video said, triggers are invisible kind of thresholds in the map that when you cross over them, the game decides, hey, I think right now we're going to spawn a monster, or hey, right now we're going to, spawn a patrol. So I put together this little paint thing to explain a little bit larger topics before we go into the game and look and see what it looks like in the game. We go from the amazing quality of the video that I put together down to a paint stream, so you'll have to deal with that. But as you can see, this green line represents the progression through a map. You go from the start to the end, and this is actually what it looks like in the game as well. It's a single line that the game kind of tries to determine where you are on it to determine how far you progress through the map. And maps in Vermintide are not single straight lines. You can go left, you can go right. It's all three-dimensional space. But the way that the game was programmed, it tries to approximate your location and your progression through the map by placing you on this line. And so if this is our team here as they're going through the map, what happens is the game draws like a vector from where you are and tries to keep it on this line as you go through. And these red circles represent the triggers. Now, triggers in Vermintide 2, for each map, for most maps, there's a couple maps that this is not the case, but for most maps, they're split into 3 sections. And so we can say this is maybe like one section here, and then this is another cutoff for another section here. In the base game, any one of these triggers could have, so like any section, we'll say section 1, section 2, or section 3. You can get a patrol or a monster in one section and then not have anything for section 2 or section 3. Or maybe you get a monster in 1 and a monster in 3 in the base game. And it's kind of random what you run into each map that you play. In Deathwish Onslaught, that is different. In Deathwish Onslaught, they have guaranteed that you will get a trigger in each section of the map. And those triggers swap from Monster Patrol Monster or Patrol Monster Patrol. So you're guaranteed to fight 3 triggers whenever you play a map in Deathwish Onslaught. Exactly where those triggers are also changes between maps. So you'll notice you get 3 triggers and there's 3 sections, but there's multiple points where that trigger may be. And that's decided when you load into the map. And so we could be running here, we pass this trigger, nothing happens. We're running here, we pass this trigger, nothing happens. Until we get to the one that the game decided was where the monster spawns in. And then that's when we get our monster right here. If he fights us. Okay. And then you move into the second area. And once you're into the second area, your next trigger, in this case, it would be a patrol if we had a monster for the first one. It can be in any one of these 4 trigger points. We don't know until we've crossed and we hit it and we trigger the patrol. So our map progression is going, We've hit this trigger point, the patrol spawns in, and then we have to dodge the patrol or fight it, whatever happens. You'll notice that the different trigger areas can have different amounts of trigger points in them as well. So it could be as low as, 4 or 5 trigger points. Sometimes there's a cluster of them, and any one of them has a chance to be the one that the game chose is the one that activates the monster or the patrol. And so, here, if we're going through the map and we know where the trigger points are, maybe we'll check this one. Oh, we didn't get a monster. Okay, we'll stop and fight a horde. Check these 2, still no monster. Okay, stop and fight a horde. Okay, we hit this one. And that's a little bit easier if there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 triggers to kind of be wary of. But when you get into like maps that have a cluster of triggers, maybe you check 4 different ones before stopping to fight a horde and then come down until you finally hit it in the final trigger point here. you want to make sure, and I'll cover this a little bit in the actual game, you want to make sure that when you come up to where a trigger could be, that you are ready to fight whatever it is, a monster or a patrol. If it's the first trigger, you don't know. Triggers 2 and 3, you will know what it is. But you want to make sure that you're ready to fight it, and you have as much time to fight that monster before a new horde spawns in, or a wave of specials comes in. Does that make sense to everybody? There's a time limit. You fight a horde and you have some dead time before the next horde comes in, and so if you position yourself right before a trigger, fight the horde, you can now go hit that trigger, and you have as much dead time between hordes to be alone with just the boss, instead of having to fight a horde at the same time as the monster. Any questions on this brief paint overview? No?
I can't see anything in the Twitch chat right now, but in case anyone here has questions, speak up. Otherwise, we'll proceed.
Yeah. So I will go ahead and go to Vermintide now. Can you see me in Vermintide now?
No, it's still the paint.
Still the paint. What if I close the paint? I should have swapped over.
Do you need to change your share screen? You change it to like screen instead of display?
It says I'm streaming Vermintide in Discord, so I don't know why it's still on the paint.
So on the share your screen button,
Yeah.
can you switch it to screens instead of applications?
The
Or you
good
can switch
old technical difficulties. Yes.
Yeah, I know.
You have to have some. It is how it is.
Am I able to just stop streaming and restart? the stream?
Probably, yes. Maybe try that.
Better?
There we go. Yes, that
Oh.
works.
Okay, I apologize for that. It worked in testing. Okay, so what does this look like in an actual map? The video was using Hail Scourge. Sienna, I'm talking. Okay, the video is using Hail Scourge, so I'll just walk around that same trigger point and explain things there as well. So, in game, we use a mod called Level Debug to see both our map progression and the triggers that we care about. So I can bring up my mod menu and I can turn on Level Debug. Level Debug was made by Craven. Everybody say thank you, Craven. It's an extremely helpful tool, and I suggest everyone get it if they want to learn where triggers are in a map and see other things as well. So you can see here that I'm going to draw the main path, which is going to be the green line. And I'm also going to show my own position on the path, or where the game thinks I am, with the a purple line. And then I also have, we'll keep this on. So boss triggers are going to be red for now. Okay, and so you can see this has appeared now. This is the line that the game uses to determine how far we have progressed in the map. And you can see as I move around, the purple orb also moves around on this line. So we can fly over to our first trigger. This is the first monster trigger that is possible in the map Hail Scourge. The way it would work is anytime that any player crosses this threshold of map progression, if that is where the AI determined the first trigger to be, it will spawn the monster there. The first area for possible triggers in Hail Scourge is everything before the elevator, and then I think technically there's like one patrol that can spawn down low that's still considered first trigger area, but it's very rare. Almost always you hit everything before taking the elevator down. So you can see for this one, as far as monster goes, there's one spot here and one spot here. And there's no other possible spots where a monster will spawn in. So if you do not get a monster right here, when you come down, and it's going to be a monster, you won't know since this is first trigger, but the only other point where you might fight a monster is when you cross this progression point right here. The other thing you can see is where those monsters spawn in. So with this first trigger point, you can follow this green line right here. And this is where this monster will spawn in. And then it'll be the same every time. And then with this one right here, if this is the monster trigger that you hit, he is going to spawn right here and then be aggroed to you. A little thing in the video, I don't know if anyone noticed this, but we use this first trigger for that short video. If a monster spawns right here, they're going to try and aggro you through the wall and just kind of be stuck here. They won't actually walk around until you come close to this area. But that's just a weird thing that happens for this specific trigger. By knowing where the triggers are in a map, you can strategize on how to, push forward and complete the map. So like I said before in the paint model, you don't want to be fighting a monster and a horde at the same time. There's just too much going on. It's too risky. Sometimes you have to do it, things happen, but if you have a choice, you'd rather not, right? You'd rather just have a rat ogre by itself that you can dodge, dance, and kill. So usually what teams will do is they'll find a spot close to the key trigger points that is safe to fight, to where you can fight a horde and then immediately in the least amount of time, check the trigger. And if you hit the monster trigger there, then you have as much time as possible between hordes to fight that monster where you're alone with it. So for example, on Hail Scourge, a lot of teams will hold back here or even over here, down there, or up here to fight the, this would be like second or third horde of the map. And then the second that horde is completed or it's almost done, you can send somebody over here, run forward, and just take a step and stand right here. Did you get a monster or not? You check the trigger that way. And if you didn't get a monster, then you can come over here, fight up here as the next common hold spot, or down here. You fight, it's a safe spot to fight. Once the horde is cleared, okay, you can go and you can check the next trigger. And then if it's a monster, you fight it. Any questions with that? Something to take note of with map progression, because map progression is on this line and the game itself is this 3D space that I can run around in, it's doing its best to approximate my progression through the level, but it's not going to be 100% accurate, and it's actually going to get confused in some cases. So you can see I'm moving around here and my orb is just standing still. And you can also see that there are cases where the game thinks I'm in one spot, and then if I move here, let's do up here, it's easier to see. Here the game thinks I'm right here as far as percentage of map completed. Hasn't changed. Second I jump down here, it's teleported, and all this space was instantly moved because I've dropped down. Then you can see the progression is right there. If I just come over here, now the progression is right there. What has changed in that amount of time from this jump to this jump? Anything significant that you can notice by going from here to here? we are now past the monster trigger, just from this jump here to here. And so there are places in the maps where you can check triggers by just taking very small steps, but it ends up being large jumps in map progression just because of how the game calculates that. So if we were to pretend that maybe there were 2 or 3 different spots where a monster trigger would be along this path, and normally you'd only check one of them, you can actually do these progression jumps and force check all of them at once and have a much higher chance of spawning your monster in when you do that progression jump. So you're able to fight the monster on your own terms between hordes. So finding these progression jump spots in maps can be very important and very beneficial. There are some that are even in your hold spots. There isn't a good example here for these first couple holds on Hail Scourge, but throughout Hail Scourge and then other maps, sometimes your hold spot, if you just stand in like a specific location after the hold, you can check 3-4 different trigger points. Just immediately kill the horde and then take a step, and it checks the triggers for you.
We had
So positioning. Mm-hmm.
We had one question in the Twitch chat asking if the map progression is based only on the first person or the person that is furthest forward.
Yes, the person that's furthest forward determines the map progression. Yeah, so if I can actually spawn in some bots here. They like to run around a little bit. Where are they at? Do I have them turned off with something else? Oh, man. Okay, I have them turned off with a different mod, it looks like. But if I had the bots here, you'd see if the bots ever ran in front of me here, the purple orb would be attached to them instead and follow them along the green line. So it's person furthest forward in the map. And because of that, because it follows anyone that goes far into the map, the position of the entire team is important. If you have the team holding in a spot and one person decides to go like get an angle on a special and they end up, whatever, coming out here just to get a special, they'll hit the map trigger. It doesn't matter that there's 3 people over here still holding, fighting stuff. If one person goes too far forward, they'll hit the trigger. Or if there is one of those map progression jumps that you're not aware of, you don't know is there, and you just step in the wrong spot, now you've hit the trigger on accident, and now you have to fight a horde and the monster at the same time. So that's why whenever you play Deathwish Onslaught, and especially if like there's a tournament that you're going to join, I can't overemphasize how important it is to jump into the maps that you're going to be playing, turn on level debug, and look where each of these different triggers are, and try and find those progression jumps that you might accidentally do that could cause a monster to spawn in, or find the progression jumps that could be beneficial or lets you check triggers exactly when you want to and save you time. For an example, say we wanted to check a trigger. This isn't, I guess, a good example because it's 2 different levels, but say we wanted to check a trigger, we'd have to run all the way down here if we didn't know about the progression jump and check it like this. Takes 30 seconds or whatever to check this first trigger. And in that entire time of me walking down there, the countdown for the next horde has begun, and you have much less time to fight the monster. Whereas if you know where a progression jump is, just dropping down here, we've checked it in, a quarter of the time, and we have that much more time to fight the monster by itself. Very important to know where these different trigger points are, so you know how to check them, when to check them, and when to trigger them when you're ready. So that is Hail Scourge. monster triggers. There are more than just monster triggers, obviously. There are also patrol triggers. So we can go ahead and turn those on. Turn off the boss triggers. There are also patrols. So patrol triggers in the level debug mod are these little orange circles. And you can see this is a good example. The very earliest trigger you can get for a patrol is right here in Hail Scourge. And that one will spawn right here every time. You'll note that just like monsters, this particular trigger for a patrol has a very specific location that that patrol spawns in, and you can actually also see their patrol routes. So this patrol is marked with this yellow, and you can watch it march through here, and it'll take this path every time as it comes down. Looks like there's 2 patrols that are up there. And then they'll always march this way, and then they'll despawn over here. Oh, no, this is what it is. This one circles around. That's why it looks like there's 2. It loops back and forth. So it comes this way, goes down there, turns around, and comes back. And that's this patrol path for this one. And it'll do that every time. So if you're walking through the map and you step right here and you hear a patrol spawn, you know it's this one. It's always going to be this one, and they're always going to do the same march. And then if you step right here, you get this other patrol that spawns over here. Oops, falling through the map. And it's going to be this teal color line. And so this teal path here, they're going to spawn here. They're going to march down this way. They're going to come up the stairs, and they're going to go this way, and they're going to leave. And it looks like they despawn out of bounds right here. There's a lot of information to try and remember with specific patrol paths and locations of what triggers them. But I'll say if there is a spot in a map where the patrols are giving you a lot of trouble, especially if you can't remember or can't figure out, where that patrol is going to march, by coming into the map, level debug turned on, you can see, okay, if I hit this one here, it's just going to loop, and they always take this path. If we're playing through the map and I hit this one here, they're going to spawn there, and they're going to actually despawn, and we don't have to worry about them looping, and they always go up the stairs. And so by looking at those patrol paths, you can find safe places to hold. This place is safe to hold against every patrol. You'll never pull a patrol standing here unless it's the very first patrol. Or you can always come up here, and even if it is the first patrol, you know that they're going to march by and then loop again, and that gives you time to move on. And then we can also look at our progression jump, and we can see what I was talking about earlier with hitting multiple triggers at once, or multiple possible triggers. There is that patrol trigger there, that patrol trigger there, that one there, and then there's a 4th one right there. So only one of these is going to actually spawn a patrol. But if you were to go and walk next to each one of them, that takes time to hit every one of those and check every one of those. Where if you know where a progression jump is, I can go from right here and then just drop down or go onto the ledge. Now I've checked all 4 of those possible patrol triggers, and there's a very high chance that when I jump from up there down to here, I'm going to hear a patrol spawn, because 4 different possible ones were checked for a patrol spawn. And there might only be like 1 more. Yeah, there's 2 more possible patrols right here and right here. So as a player playing Hail Scourge, if you've made it to this point in the map and you haven't spawned a patrol or a monster, you are good to roam this entire area without fear of hitting another trigger until you pass through these double doors. And you might already have figured that out just in playing the map enough times that, running around here, I never hear a monster spawn in just running around here. It's always when I pass through the double doors or when I drop down. And that's why. It's those progression jumps and the locations of the triggers. And then if you're playing, and I can turn the monster one back on. boss spawns here. So if I check right here and I didn't get a spawn, so I've jumped down, nothing happened. I've come here, I've stepped like 2 steps past the door, nothing has happened. I instantly know we're going to get a patrol. Because there are no other possible monster spawns, and we've checked both of them. So this first trigger is going to be a patrol, and it's going to be right there, or it's going to be right there. There's no other option. And so that's very valuable information for your team. If you're, fighting here, holding off a horde, and you go and you check this trigger and a monster doesn't appear, you can now strategize on what to do for the patrol that you know you're going to get. And it's like that for all the maps that you'll play. Knowing these locations and where the patrol ones, where the monster ones are, it can greatly improve your chances of completing the map because you're able to know what's coming before it happens a lot of the time. And then, yeah, if you come to this point and you still haven't hit any triggers, you're going to hit a trigger. It's going to be a patrol, and it's going to be this one, and it's going to spawn right there. And not only is it going to spawn right there, it's going to march this direction and try and find its way up here. Yeah. So, very valuable information, knowing where the triggers are, knowing how to position yourself around them, and knowing how it interacts with progression jumps. Any questions on patrols, patrol marching routes, progression jumps, anything like that?
We have a few questions about that in the Twitch chat.
Mm-hmm.
And one is, how can you tell if the patrol keeps turning around or despawns?
You just have to try and look at patrol spawns, patrol routes. Can I do just the routes? Yeah. It's a lot cleaner to look at. Just trying to follow the line that the patrol moves. So like for the orange one here, it's like pretty obvious that they kind of just turn around and keep going. But something like the teal one here, they jump out of bounds and it doesn't loop back around. It's not like a second line that keeps going. It just stops. That'll be one that just despawns. And so you're looking for like those circular things. Same with the yellow one here. It kind of like doubles back in on itself instead of like, where does this dark blue one go? The dark blue one goes out of bounds and just stops. So they despawn there. And that's the same for this yellow one here, which I think was the elevator one. So they're not told like an exact path to follow. They're just told go from the elevator and try and get here. And so they'll use their pathing and they'll probably march up the stairs and then jump over this wall and despawn. No, actually, do they jump up here? I don't even remember now. Maybe they jump up here and despawn. But looking to see where the end of the marching path is. Usually if it's out of bounds, they despawn. Not always. There's an example on Righteous Stand where you can be in a corner. There's a very common hold spot, the very first hold spot in Righteous Stand. And if you back yourself up into a corner enough, the patrol will march in front of you and just despawn and disappear right in front of you. So it's not always out of bounds that they disappear, but most of the time it is. Hopefully that answered the question.
I think it did, yes.
Okay.
Are there any more questions? Maybe from the voice chat right here or anywhere else?
No? Okay.
I guess not.
Okay. That was very quick. Just thinking if there's anything else I wanted to touch on with the triggers here. Yeah, I'll say what I said again. It's very important to know the locations of the triggers because you can strategize around them, pick your hold points, check the triggers when you want to, fight the monsters on your own terms, know where to stand to dodge the patrol that you just triggered because you know it's patrol path. It's not something that you're going to memorize for every map in the game, but you'll memorize the common ones, and then if there is a tournament that you're going to play in, you're given the 4 maps ahead of time. You can sit down and really study the patrol paths, the monster triggers, and just know that map inside and out for when you do play it on tournament day.